me know if everybody has downloaded it. One PDF was shared. If you don't have it, then I will share it again. Let me put it in the chat box once more. So this is basically the material for the questions, so that you don't have to struggle with the questions I'm going to be taking today. Have you gotten the PDF, everybody? Please download it and keep it. Yes, I see a thumbs up from Amit. Thank you, Amit. Others also, please do download it, and we will be using this for today's session. All right. So let me start with sharing my screen. And let me know once you can see it. Everybody can see my screen? Thank you, Aisha. I think you can. How about the others? Okay, thank you, Amal Krishna. Thank you, Abhishek. Okay, perfect. So let's begin. So now, of course, before getting into marginal costing questions and the that part of it, I want to first begin with explaining the basic concepts of marginal costing. Once you have understood this, you will not have to mug up any formulas in this chapter. Just one simple formula, that's it, and everything will be linked to that formula. So let's begin with what is marginal costing. So in the previous sessions, we have done absorption costing, correct? Overhead costing. In overhead costing, what did we see? We saw that we allocate direct material, direct labor, and then when it comes to overheads, we'll take one predetermined rate and we will allocate that overhead cost to the product based on that predetermined rate, correct? And then you will find the total cost of that product. Marginal costing is not a type of costing method. It is a technique which is used for decision making. What is the use of marginal costing? Marginal costing basically considers only variable costs. The only point of focus for marginal costing is variable cost. What do you mean by variable cost? It means that for every additional unit that you produce, what is the additional cost that you will incur? When you take a fixed cost, like rent, for example, by producing one additional unit, your rent will not increase, correct? So that is not at all a variable cost. But by producing one additional unit, your raw material cost increases, your labor cost will increase, and cost that is directly associated to that product will increase, correct? So marginal costing focuses only on these variable costs. Whatever costs increases with the increase in per unit of production. That is called marginal costing. I hope this is clear. Now, what is a marginal costing statement? This is the most important part of the chapter. Once you've understood this, all the questions will be easy to crack after that. What is the marginal costing statement? It begins with sales less variable cost, which gives you something called the contribution. In other words, you can say like, your primary gross margin. So here we will call it a contribution. Sales minus variable cost, it's called a contribution. Then we reduce the fixed cost from this and then we will get the profit. So this is very simple, five levels. Sales, less variable cost will give you your contribution, less fixed cost will give you your profit. Is this much clear? Is this statement clear for everybody? Is there no confusion with respect to this? Has everybody understood what a marginal cost statement is? Perfect. Okay. Once this is clear, we can proceed further. So now let's start with one small example. And with this example, we will perform all our different formulas. So the first one, let's take an example. We have 20,000 units that have been sold by an entity. The sales price per unit is 30 rupees. The variable cost per unit is 15 rupees. The fixed cost per unit, a fixed cost in total is 1,50,000. Okay. Now, like I said, this is our marginal costing format. Sales less variable cost gives us contribution, less fixed cost gives us profit. Let's fill in the details that we already have from the example. Units sold 20,000 units and at 30 rupees. So that makes our sales 20,000 units into 30 rupees. Correct? That gives us a sales of 6 lakhs. Now what about variable cost? Variable cost will be 20,000 units into 15 rupees. Correct? That will give us our variable cost. Our contribution is nothing but sales minus variable cost. That will give us 3 lakh. Let's highlight this contribution. And we have a fixed cost of 1,50,000. So 1,50,000 is our fixed cost. So that will give us a profit of 3 lakh minus 1,50,000. 1,50,000 is our profit. So from this example, formulating the marginal costing format, was it simple and clear? I hope there was no confusion here. Sales less variable cost is equal to the contribution, less fixed cost will give us the profit. I hope everybody was able to follow till here. Okay, great. Now, let's look at each step and what we can get out from this. The first thing is our contribution. So it was very simple to calculate our contribution. Nothing. It was our sales minus variable costs. So what did we do? We took our sales per unit minus the variable cost per unit. That will give us a per unit contribution. So if you do 30 minus 15, like if you see here, contribution can be calculated on a per unit basis. Contribution can also be calculated on a total units basis. So when you do a per unit, for each unit you will take the sale price minus the variable cost. That will give you rupees 15 per unit, contribution per unit. And if you want the contribution amount in total, you will just multiply it with the units. So you take the sales per unit minus variable cost per unit and you will multiply it with the number of units sold. That will give you the total contribution. I hope this much is clear. Calculation of contribution. Okay, great. Now we'll proceed with the formula that we need to know. The first and the only formula that all of you need to remember is PV ratio. What is PV ratio? PV ratio is nothing but your contribution divided by sales. Something like a gross margin. How in gross margin we divide the profit, the gross profit divided by sales gives you the gross margin, right? It's very similar. PV ratio is also contribution divided by sales will give you your PV ratio. Now, how do we calculate it in this question? The first thing we did is we calculated our sales, which is 30 rupees into 20,000. That gives us 6 lakhs. And contribution, we already got 3 lakhs. If you see here, we've already calculated it. It's 3 lakhs. So that way we get a contribution of 3 lakhs and sales of 6 lakhs. So when we calculate our PV ratio, we'll get 3 lakhs by 6 lakhs, which is our 50% or 0.5. That will be a PV ratio. What is the use of this PV ratio? What happens generally in the questions is that they will give you either contribution and sales, telling you to calculate PV ratio, or they'll give you PV ratio and you will have to calculate the contribution, or they'll give you the sales and PV ratio and you will have to calculate the, or they'll give you the PV ratio and contribution and tell you to calculate the sales. So it can be a mix and match of everything. So you just need to remember that PV ratio is equal to the contribution divided by the sales. That is one simple formula. If you remember, you just have to keep using a mix and match format and you will be able to answer the questions. So PV ratio is equal to contribution by sales. That means sales will be equal to what? Contribution divided by PV ratio. Correct? If I'm just taking the formula from left to right, it will become sales is equal to contribution by PV ratio in case you have to find sales. And in case you have to find contribution, it will be PV ratio into sales. So is this formula clear for everybody? PV ratio is equal to contribution by sales, because this is the only formula that everybody has to remember, because from this we will derive all the other formulas. PV ratio is equal to contribution by sales. That's it. Nothing much to remember here. It's just like a gross profit formula. Okay, perfect. Now let's move into the next part, which is called break-even sales. Now, what is break-even sales? Very important concept, because you will be able to make a lot of answers from this one particular concept. Now, what is break-even sales? Once you understand the concept, everything should be easy. Break-even sales is basically the sales when your contribution is equal to your fixed cost. Now, what does that mean? If I go back to my marginal costing format, can you see there is something called contribution and there's something called fixed cost, correct? And contribution minus fixed cost is equal to the profit. What break-even sales tells us is that marginal costing, like I told you, is only concerned about variable cost. So they are saying make enough contribution, that is sales minus variable cost, make enough contribution that you're able to cover the fixed costs. So for example, over here, my fixed cost is 1,50,000. So how much sales should I make so that my contribution is also equal to 1,50,000 and I don't mind having a zero profit. But I just want to be able to make enough contribution to cover my fixed cost. That is the concept of a manufacturer or a business owner. That when will I be able to at least cover all my costs so that I'm not making losses? I'm in zero profit, it's fine, but I shouldn't be making any losses. When will that happen? When my contribution is equal to fixed cost. So that is the point of break-even sales. Is this concept clear? Break-even sales is when your contribution is equal to fixed costs. And that is the point where you're making no losses. It's zero profit, but you're making no losses. Is this concept clear of what is break-even? Right. So that is the concept. You're covering up all your costs. Now, how do we calculate it? So first, before getting into the formula, let's take an example without any formula, without anything. Let's just take a simple example. Now, in the above case, which we have, the 20,000 units, we want to know at what amount of sales will we be able to get a break-even point. So let the number of units sold for making a break-even be X. Simple. What will be our sales? Our sale per unit is 30 rupees. We multiply it with X, we'll get 30X. Clear? Variable cost will be 15 into X. X is the units we need to find. That will become 15X. What will be our contribution here? 30X minus 15X, which will be 15X. Correct? Now, fixed cost we know is 1,50,000. And when we say break even, profit will be equal to 0. So now if we bring it into a formula, we can see that 15x, that is our contribution, should be equal to our fixed cost. So what is x? 1,50,000 by 15. That gives us a break-even units of 10,000 units. So if you can see here, what we have technically done is we have found the number of units when it will break even. What does that mean? If I sell 10,000 units today, with the same selling price and variable cost and fixed cost, I will get a sale of 10,000 units into 30 rupees, which is 3 lakhs. 10,000 units into 15 rupees of variable cost, which is 1,50,000. That will give me a contribution of 1,50,000, which will give me a fixed cost of 1,50,000, which will give me a profit of 0. So when I sold 10,000 units, I made a contribution equal to my fixed cost, which gives a 0 profit. If I go back to what I have done here, 1,50,000 divided by 15. 1,50,000 was what? Our fixed cost. And 15 rupees is what? Our contribution per unit. So, in other words, break-even sales is nothing but your fixed cost, your total fixed cost divided by your contribution per unit, which gave us the total number of units to be sold to be able to make a break-even sales, which is 10,000 units. I don't think anybody needs to mug up this formula. If you can remember this table, if you can remember this X, that we have to find X, this formula will automatically flow into your mind. It is nothing but your fixed cost divided by your contribution per unit. That will give you the break-even sales units. Is everybody clear till now how we calculated the fixed cost divided by contribution per unit and arrived at our break-even sales units? Does anybody want me to repeat? Does anybody feel like they still have to mug up the formula here? Nothing to mug up. If you can remember this table, it's simple. That's it. Even if in the exam you forget the formula, immediately make this table. Make X as your number of units, put X, make the equation, divide it, find it, and you will get the answer in front of you. So this is the, I would say a slow way in exam, better to remember the formula. But in my opinion, this is not even something to remember. It will just flow. Fixed cost divided by contribution per unit will give you your break-even sales. Okay. So now that was break-even sales in units. What about in the value format? So now what will you do for value format? You will just multiply 10,000 units into the sales price per unit, correct? Everybody is clear with that? To find the value, you will just multiply 10,000 units into sales price. That will give you the total value, the sales value. Is everybody following till now? Please let me know if there's any questions. Okay. Okay. So you will just multiply the break-even sales units with the sales price per unit and you will get the break-even sales value. In terms of value, you will get it. Now, for this also, there is a formula we can derive. What is it? So you know that fixed cost divided by contribution per unit will give me my break-even sales units. Now, if I multiply the above with the sales price, Sophia, which part do you want me to repeat? Break-even sales in units? Okay. So if I go back to the table again, break-even sales is a point where my contribution should be equal to the fixed cost. So that when I do contribution minus fixed cost, my profit will be zero. I don't need any profit. Profit should be zero. I don't want to make losses, but I don't want a profit also. So at that point, that means my contribution is equivalent to my fixed cost. Because when I do contribution minus fixed cost, profit should come to zero. Now, what we understand is that if I do take the formula, if I take X as the number of units for what I have to sell, then it becomes 15X, that's the number of units to be sold, should be equal to 1,50,000. So when I do 15X is equal to 1,50,000, I get X is equal to 1,50,000 divided by 50. 1,50,000 is nothing but my fixed cost, now basically, here. And 15 is nothing but my contribution per unit. So that brings me to the formula that break-even sales is fixed cost divided by contribution per unit. So from this table, we have derived this formula. Is it clear, Sophia?
Clear, ma'am.
Clear. Okay, great. Now we want to find the value. So like I said, for the value, we will just multiply it with our sales price per unit. So that will give me fixed cost by contribution per unit into sales price per unit. Is this much clear for everybody? Fixed cost by contribution per unit into sales price per unit will give me break-even sales value. Thank you, Dia. Thank you. Okay. So it's clear till now. Now what we'll do is we'll just tweak it a little. We'll bring the fixed cost outside and we'll bring the contribution per unit divided by sales price per unit in the bracket. Does anybody remember what was contribution per unit divided by sales price per unit? We had done it initially. Contribution divided by sales gives us what? PV ratio. Exactly. So if I just take this aside, contribution by sales per unit, that gives me my PV ratio. So this will give, this is basically, okay, 1 minute. This will be contribution by, okay. So one thing you need to remember is, here it is divided by contribution per unit and multiplied by sales price per unit. So it is the opposite way. Can you see it? We are dividing by contribution and we are multiplying by sales ratio. So instead of PV ratio, it will become 1 by PV ratio. That means it will be fixed cost divided by the PV ratio. Is everybody clear with this concept? This is not multiply, this is divide basically. It will become fixed cost divided by my PV ratio. So this is a simple way of arriving at our formula for break-even sales. Fixed cost divided by PV ratio. So even in the exam now, again, you don't remember this formula. Try to bring and derive the formula in the exam. This is for the worst case scenario. In the exam, by the time you practice 100 times, these formulas will be in your head. But I don't want anybody to mug up these formulas. formulas. Everybody should know how this formula is coming, what is the derivation of this formula, so that in the exam you're not clouded and cluttered with 100,000 formulas. Now you just remembered one formula, PV ratio is equal to contribution by sales. Everything else will just flow. So I hope everybody is clear with the break-even sales formula, which is fixed cost by contribution divided by contribution per unit. And if you want to get the value, it will become fixed cost divided by the PV ratio, which is 1,50,000 divided by 50%, which we calculated above, which also gives us 3 lakhs. I hope everybody is clear so far with the formula of break-even sales. Anybody wants me to repeat, please let me know. Thank you, Sana. Okay, great. So let's move into the last concept which we have, which is margin of safety. What is margin of safety? Margin of safety is basically the difference between your expected sales and your break-even sales. What do you mean by expected sales? Expected sales, you can say, is basically your sales which you are actually doing. You know, you are actually, in this example, if I go above, I'm actually making a profit here of 1,50,000. I'm not making a loss and I'm not making break even. I'm making more than break even. I'm making a profit. So this is my actual sales right now. How much? 20,000 units. But what is margin of safety? Margin of safety is that level of sales which you are making over and above the break even sales. If you go down, we calculated our break even sales at 10,000 units, correct? And we are actually selling 20,000 units. So this difference between 20,000 units and 10,000 units is my margin of safety. Basically, how much profit am I actually making over and above break even. Clear? Is the concept of margin of safety clear? It is the sales over and above my break even sales. That is what is my margin of safety. Okay, great. Now we can proceed with understanding how to calculate margin of safety. Margin of safety, again, you can calculate it in value, in amount. What will that be? Your expected sales minus your break-even sales. Meaning, MOS is equal to, no, MOS is equal to margin of safety, Jansi. Is that okay now? Jansi, is that clear? No. MOS and profit is not the same. Profit is contribution minus your fixed cost. MOS is the sale amount, the sales you're making over and above your break-even sales. So, for example, in this case, what is your expected sales or your current sales? 20,000 units into 30 rupees, correct? Which is 6 lakhs. That's what we calculated above, right? Our sales. 6 lakhs is our current sales minus break-even sales. What is our break-even sales? We calculated here to be 3 lakhs. Correct? Break-even sales, because that is our sales when our contribution will be equal to fixed cost. Correct? If you see here, 3 lakh we got, right? After finding out 10,000 units. So the difference between your actual sales minus your break-even sales, that sale amount, that extra sales that you're making, that is your margin of safety. Is it clear, Jansi? Clear. Okay. So margin of safety is not your profit. That please don't get confused. Margin of safety is that excess sales you're making over and above break-even sales. Now let's derive the formula. Coming to expected sales. Contribution divided by PV ratio. Khatija wants me to repeat once more. Okay. Margin of safety is basically the extra sales that you make over and above your break-even sales. Break-even sales, you're clear, Khadija? What is break-even sales? Clear, right? It's like the enough sales to cover your fixed cost and give you a profit of 0. But in reality, you're making more than that, right? You want to make more than that. You're selling more than that. So that extra that you're selling over and above the break-even sales, that is my margin of safety. So for example, let's bring a real life example. Like let's say you are a Coca-Cola company. Okay. In a month, if I sell 500 units of Coke bottles, I will be able to make zero profit. But I am selling 700 units. So that 700 units minus that 500 units, the 200 units of Coke bottles that I'm selling, that is my margin of safety because that's helping me get a profit. Correct? At break-even sales, I'm not getting any profit. I'm getting only zero profit. I'm getting a contribution but zero profit. But when I sell that 200 units more, I'm able to finally make a profit and it's finally looking like a good green picture too. So that is safety. That is my margin of safety. I'm happy with that. It's making me safe because I'm getting a profit there. Clear, Khadija? Okay. So this is our margin of safety concept, which is my expected sales minus break-even sales. So in terms of value, there's no formula here. It's just the concept, expected sales minus break-even sales. But in terms of formula, let's look at it. We have expected sales formula to be contribution by PV ratio. Can somebody tell me how I came to this formula? Break-even sales is equal to profit by PV ratio. No, no, Sophia. You will not consider profit for break-even sales. It is the fixed cost. If you go above in the formula table, if I go back to the table, I need to multiply. I need to make sure contribution is equal to fixed cost. Fixed cost. So your break-even sales will always be fixed cost divided by that PV ratio. Is it okay? Clear?
Clear, ma'am.
Okay. Now, coming to margin of safety. Can somebody tell me how I came to this formula that sales is equal to contribution by PV ratio? Can somebody tell me what I did to come to arrive at this formula? Anyone? How is expected sales equal to contribution divided by PV ratio? Thank you, Jansi. Correct. So PV ratio is contribution divided by sales. So what is sales? Sales will be just cross multiply. Contribution divided by PV ratio will give me sales. So that one formula, if you remember, you just have to keep mixing and matching it. PV ratio is equal to contribution by sales. Sales is equal to contribution by PV ratio. Contribution is equal to PV ratio into sales. Just that one formula, just placing one here and there, like a puzzle. So from there, we have derived at this formula that sales will be equal to contribution by PV ratio. Everybody clear so far? This formula, sales. Thank you, Atira. Okay. So everybody's clear with this formula. Now coming to break-even sales. What did we see above? What was break-even sales formula? I don't want people to see this. What is break-even sales formula? If I need break-even sales in value, what did we do?
Fixed cost by PV ratio.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So fixed cost by PV ratio. I need everybody to be very quick with these responses. Okay. So break-even sales is nothing but fixed cost by PV ratio. Sales is nothing but contribution by PV ratio. Now, what did I tell you margin of safety was? Expected sales minus break-even sales, which will be contribution by PV ratio minus fixed cost by PV ratio. And can somebody tell me what is contribution minus fixed cost give you?
Profit.
Profit. So that way, margin of safety will be profit divided by PV ratio. Because expected sales minus break-even sales is margin of safety. Contribution by PV ratio is expected sales. Fixed cost by PV ratio is break-even sales. So contribution by PV ratio minus fixed cost by PV ratio will give me profit by PV ratio. This is our formula for margin of safety. So profit we know is 1,50,000. We got it above when we calculated here. PV ratio we have 50%. So when we did 1,50,000 by 50%, we got our margin of safety to be 3 lakhs. Does somebody still want a clarification on how we derived that profit by PV ratio? Did you understand how we got profit by PV ratio is equal to margin of safety? Thank you, Sana. How about the others? Okay, great. So everybody has understood, right? Clear. Great. So that's it. This is all you need to remember in this chapter. Not this is all. There's some more things that you but today I just want to cover these concepts. Your contribution should be very clear. Your formula for PV ratio should be very, very clear. Your break-even sales concept should be very clear. And your margin of safety should be very clear. If this is set in your head, all the questions will just flow automatically. Okay? You don't have to stress about anything. There was no mugging up of formulas you've done here. You just need to remember PV ratio is equal to contribution by sales. That's it. And then concept. What is break-even sales? When your contribution is equal to fixed cost. What is your margin of safety? That excess of sales in above of break-even sales. So I hope everybody is clear with these concepts right now. Anything that you want me to repeat again, let me know. I'll repeat. Otherwise, we'll begin with the questions. Okay, perfect. So I had shared a PDF with you all. Please open that PDF because the questions are in the PDF only. Oh, there is. Okay. So please open that PDF and maybe you can go to page number 14.15. Yeah. Open the PDF to 14.15 and that's the question we'll begin with. I hope everybody has kept it ready. Shall we begin? Please let me know in the chat box. Thank you, Atira. Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, Fawaz. Okay. How about the others? Okay, great. So I hope everybody is on page 14.15. This is a simple question for all of you. If you can solve it by yourself also, it's great. So let's begin. MNP Limited sold 275,000 units of its product at 37.5 per unit. So 275,000 units is the number of units sold, correct? And 37.5 rupees per unit is your selling price per unit. Variable costs are 17.5 per unit. In that, manufacturing cost is 14 rupees and selling cost is 3.5 per unit. Fixed costs are incurred uniformly throughout the year and amounting to 35 lakh rupees, including depreciation of 15 lakhs. There is no beginning or ending inventories required. Compute your break-even sales level quantity and fixed and cash break-even sales quantity. Let's keep cash break-even on one side. Let's talk about break-even sales level quantity. What is the formula for break-even sales? What we just learned right now. What is break-even sales? Tell me the concept in the chat box.
Fixed cost by PV ratio.
Okay, great. That's great. Okay, great. But here, see, fixed cost by PV ratio will give us the value, break-even sales value. What if I want the quantity? Fixed cost by contribution. Perfect, Anjana. So now, if we go back to our Excel, the first thing that we will need to calculate is, this is, okay, let me give you a hack for marginal costing. In marginal costing, always draw this table before the question. Page number 14.15, Sharifa. In marginal costing, always draw this table and keep. Let's say you forget the formula, something messes up in the exam. This table will always come in handy. Sales, variable cost, we need to find this, we need to find it. Something or the other will come in handy. So I just want to give you one question where we take this table as a base. Okay. So let's get into our break-even sales. Now, break-even sales, if you say, let's keep it as, X units. Okay. Let's keep break-even sales as X units. This I'm just giving so that you get an idea of what we are doing, so that it's not just formulas. Please understand what we're doing with the formulas. What is sales? Sales is 37.5 rupees, correct? So what will be our break-even sale? 37.5 X. Okay, clear? What will be our variable cost? 17.5 X. X is our units. I'm not using formula here. Without formula, we are solving this question. What will be my contribution per unit then? I mean, contribution. Can somebody tell me?
20, 20x.
20x. Perfect. What is my fixed cost? Okay, my fixed cost here is 35 lakhs. Perfect. Thank you, Abhishek. 35 lakhs. Right? So now profit is equal to 0 because we're talking about break-even. So if 20x, what we're trying to say is 20x is equal to 35 lakhs. So x is equal to 35 lakhs divided by 20. How much does that give you?
1,75,000.
1,75,000. Thank you. Okay, this is how we found it through x. Let's leave x. Let's look at us as pros now. Let's look at us like we know it now. If you take fixed cost directly, the formula 35 lakhs. It is already given in the question. Divided by contribution per unit, which is 20. That will give me 1,75,000. So this will be my break-even sales. Everybody's clear so far? Any confusion, any doubts?
Clear, ma'am?
Clear. How about the others? Please let me know in the chat box. Okay, great. Now, there is a second part to the question. Cash break-even sales. It's nothing. It's very simple. It's basically here it's telling depreciation is there, right? 15 lakhs. We all know depreciation is a non-cash expense. So for the fixed cost, we will not consider the entire 35 lakhs. We will only consider 35 lakhs minus 15 lakhs, which is 20 lakhs. So can somebody please tell me what is the break-even sales now? Cash break-even sales. 1 lakh units. Thank you, Sana. How about the others? 1 lakh. So I hope you understood what does that mean. So in cash, we will not consider the depreciation because depreciation is non-cash. Here we will get a formula of 35 minus 15 lakhs, which is 20 lakhs. 20 lakhs divided by contribution per unit 20, which will give me 1 lakh units. Here, everybody has understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So now, I don't want to keep solving these simple questions. So let's move into something more nicer. Let's go to illustration 3. Everybody's on page 14.17. Okay. Okay, now you can read the question. A company has a PV ratio of 40%. Compute by what percentage must sales be increased to offset 20% reduction in selling price? So what is the question asking us? The question is telling that the company is currently having a PV ratio of 40%. Okay. And it is telling us by what percentage the sales should be increased so that we can offset it with a reduction of 20% in the selling price. So what does this mean? We basically want to keep the contribution the same, right? Because we have PV ratio, correct? When we have PV ratio, what is PV ratio? Which is between contribution and sales. It's telling that PV ratio is 40%. It's telling sales price is reducing. But we want to keep the contribution the same so that by increasing the sales quantity. Because if I'm selling 500 units at 10 rupees and getting 5,000 rupees, now if my selling price is reduced to 5 rupees, what should I do to maintain that profit? I should increase my sales, right? Because my sales price is reduced. My selling price is reduced, I have to increase my sales units. So it's telling by what percentage should we increase it. So no need to get very, I don't think we should take a very complicated approach. Let's take examples here. Okay. So now what it's telling, a company has a current PV ratio of 40%. Let's go into the answer. Let's take this current situation. If it is having a PV ratio of 40%, we'll give it an example. What is the example? We'll give it an example of, let's take 10 rupees. Let the current sales price be 10 rupees. And just an example. You can take whatever you want. 20 rupees, 200 units, whatever you want, you can take. Yes, we need a selling price to start from because we need to see how much does the sales price reduce and what is the corresponding impact on the sales units. Is it clear? The concept of taking an example of sales price per unit and sales unit. I hope nobody's confused. Okay. So this is as per your choice. I'm not forcing you to take rupees 10 and 100 units, but this is as per your choice. Take a random sales per unit and take a random sales units of 100 units to start with. Okay. So that will give me a sales of how much? 10 rupees into 100 units based on my example. Clear so far? Is this clear, everybody? The whole sales price per unit, I'm taking it as 10 rupees. And the sales unit, I'm taking as 100 units. I'm just taking this as an example so that we start the question, right? Otherwise, we have no other information. This question is completely blank. We don't have anything here. We just have a PV ratio. So we have to give the information here. I have given 10 rupees for sales price per unit and 100 units for sales unit. Now, sales I'm getting as 10 into 100 units, which is 1000 rupees. What we have information, PV ratio is 40%. So what is my contribution then if my PV ratio is 40%? Can somebody tell me? Yeah, sorry. Sneha has said 60%. Jansi has said 400. Good. Mansi has said 400. Very good. Okay. Sneha, why did you tell 600, 60%? 60% will be my variable cost percent, right? Because 40% is PV ratio. PV ratio is what? My contribution percent, right? So 40% will be my contribution percentage. Got it? Okay. So my sales into 40% will give me my contribution. So that will give me a variable cost of 1000 minus 400. Got it? That'll give me a contribution. Fixed cost, we can keep it aside. We don't have that information anyway in the question. This is what we need. Okay? Sales less variable cost is giving me the contribution. Now, okay, Sharifa wants me to repeat. Okay, Sharifa, did you understand the concept of taking 10 rupees as sales price per unit and 100 units as sales units? You understood that is a random sample we are taking so that we can begin the question. Okay, because we have no other information. So we have taken 10 rupees as the sales price per unit and 100 units as the sales unit. If you want, you can take 1000 units, 2000 units, whatever you want. So I put the sales, which is 10 rupees into 100 units. Then I get a 40% PV ratio. PV ratio is contribution divided by sales. Can everybody mute themselves? So PV ratio is what? Contribution divided by sales. Correct. So now if I want to get my contribution here, it is nothing but 40 PV ratio into sales. That will give me 40% of 1000, which is 400 rupees. Is it clear, Sharifa? Is there still some confusion? Someone's mic is on. Yes. Can somebody switch off their mic? I think somebody's mic is on. Can you mute yourself, please? Okay. So I hope it's clear till here. Now, what is the question telling? The question is telling that there was a 20% reduction in the selling price. So let's reduce this by 20%. What? Selling price. So that will be 10 minus 20% of 10, isn't it? So 10 minus 20% of 10 will give me 8 rupees. So this is my revised sales price. Now we have to find sales units. Sales units is what we have to understand. But what we know, what should be constant? Contribution has to be constant. So this shouldn't change. My 400 rupees should not change. So it becomes very easy once you put these boxes and understand the concept. The question what it's saying, by what percentage must the sales be increased? The sales quantity basically be increased to to have the same contribution, right? So that amount should be the same. The contribution should be the same, but we have to increase the sales quantity. So how much do we increase the sales quantity by? So let's keep the sales quantity as X. What will my sales ratio become? It will become 8X, correct? And my variable cost, we can take it from here. There is no change in the variable cost. Nothing about the variable cost. So we can keep it from here. What is my variable cost? 600 divided by 100 units. 6 rupees, correct? Per unit. My variable cost is 6. So here it will become 6x. Is everybody following? Please let me know when somebody is if somebody is not able to follow. Clear, Atira, thank you. How about the others? Everybody understood how I got 6x? How I got 8x? Clear. X is because we don't know what x is. Now we will find what x is. Right? Okay. So we know that 8x minus 6x should be equal to 400. What is x then? Khatija once more. Okay. Now what is happening is current situation is clear, Khatija. Current situation is clear. Okay. Revised situation, you understood 8 rupees. How we got 8 rupees? Okay. Question itself is telling there is a 20% reduction in selling price. So from 10 rupees, if I reduce 20%, it will give me 8. Right? Clear? Okay. Now sales units. We want to see how much to sell now so that we can maintain that contribution of 400 rupees. So we are giving it X. We're giving X rupees. Now sales is equal to 8X because 8 into X. Understood, Khadija? Clear? Okay. Thank you, Khadija. All right. So moving forward, okay, Abhishek has told 200 units. So X is equal to, okay, so let's just solve it here. 2X is equal to 400 units. So X will be equal to what? 400 by 2, which is 200 units. Okay. I will have to sell 200 units to be able to make the same kind of profit contribution. So what is the change in sales quantity? So here we have 200 units. Right? What is my change in sales quantity now? How can we calculate this change? So we can, let's just put this. So old sales, ma'am, how 6x? Okay. So we have variable cost of 600. Fawaz, this is for you. We have variable cost of 600 rupees based on the current situation. So 600 by 100 units will give me 6 rupees per unit, correct? For variable cost. So that will give me 6x here because I don't know the number of units I'm going to sell. Okay, thank you. Now coming to change in sales quantity. So what is our old sales units? Somebody has already mentioned double. Thank you, Mansi. So old sales units is 100 units. New sales units is 200 units. So what is our change? New minus old divided by old. Right? So that will give me 200 minus 100 divided by 100, which is, how much is that? Give me 2. One minute. Okay, sorry, into 100%, correct, correct. We're taking a percentage. So that will give me a 100% jump, correct? So there is a total change of 100%. Is everybody clear till here? The change in sales quantity? Okay, perfect. Now we will look at change in sales value. What is change in sales value? What is my old sales value? 10 rupees into 100 units, correct? So that was 10 into 100 percentage. Correct? This is my old sales. What is my new sales? Can somebody tell me what is my new sales as per our example? Thank you. 1600, which is 8 rupees into 200 units. 1600. So what is my change in sales value? So let's see the difference. New minus old, which is 600. So we will do 600. What is it in a percentage if you have to say? 600 divided by 1000, which is 0.6, which is basically 60%. Is everybody clear with this, how we calculated it? Any questions? Great job, Khatija. Thank you. How about the others? Everybody's clear, right? Okay. So it was just a matter of understanding the current situation and the revised situation, and basically putting some values to it. Because in the question, don't sit and put formulas there. Okay, PV ratio is equal to this by this. This is how we'll find the sales. No need to do that. Put this table. Draw the table, put some figures, understand how you can change it, see what the value is. Easily things will flow for you. Don't have to complicate things. So let's move to the next one, which is illustration 4. The next one. That's page number 14.19. I hope everybody is there. Okay. Thank you, Pratisha. Illustration 4. PQR Limited has furnished the following data for the 2 years, 21 to 22 and 22 to 23. Sales, 8 lakh rupees. Here we don't know what's the sales. Then we have profit by volume ratio, which is my PV ratio. In case you didn't know what is PV stand for, it's profit by volume ratio. Okay. So PV ratio is 50% for 21-22, and for 22-23 it is 37.5%. Margin of safety sales as a percentage of total sales. 40% for 21-22 and 21.875 for 22-23. There has been substantial savings in the fixed cost in the year 22-23 due to the restructuring process. So please note that we have some changes. So what they've given is they've given some information for 21-22 and they've given some information for 22-23. Okay. So they have told that there was some savings in the fixed cost in the year 22-23. The company could maintain its sales quantity level of 21-22 in 22-23 by reducing the selling price. So what is it saying? Selling price has reduced, but quantity has remained the same. correct? You are required to calculate the following. Sales for 22-23 in value, fixed cost for 22-23 in value, and break-even sales for 22-23 in value. Okay, you can definitely apply formulas and start working on it, but I want everybody to have a conceptual understanding here. So let's try to understand what all is given in the question. So we have the sales, which is 8 lakhs. We have the PV ratio of last year, which is 50%. So from this, what can you calculate? If the PV ratio is given, what all can you calculate from this for 21-22, which will be useful for us for in 22-23? If you note in the question, do you see anywhere that variable cost has changed? Thank you, Atira. Thank you, Sukhir. Very good. Variable cost. Perfect. So do you see variable cost has changed in this question? No. Fixed cost has changed, quantity has changed, so definitely contribution would have also changed. But variable cost has not changed. So what you need to think in the exam is variable cost of 21-22 can be used for 22-23. So the first thing that we will do is calculate the variable cost. I want everybody to draw this table: sales, variable cost, contribution, fixed cost, profit. Okay. So what is my sales for 21-22? What's my sales for 21-22? 8 lakhs, right? Given in the question. Is everybody following? Thank you, Atira. I hope everybody is following. Okay. So, yes, thank you. We have 8 lakhs as our sales. Now, variable cost. What is our variable cost? Can somebody tell me in the chat box? Okay, forget variable cost. Tell me the contribution. 50%. Yeah. Okay. Now, in this case, both is the same only. So, 8 lakh into 50% is our contribution. 4 lakhs will give me my contribution. Thank you. Thank you. Everybody. Yes. Thank you, everybody. So what will be my variable cost? 8 lakh minus 4 lakh. Basically, the remaining 50% will become my variable cost. Now, fixed costs. Is that given? Fixed cost is not given directly. We will figure it out. Moving forward, we'll figure it out. But for now, we have gotten 4 lakhs. Correct? Now, the first thing that we need to do is we need to calculate the sales in 22-23. So now what is given? Sales quantity level is the same, which implies that if I had sold, let's say, 50,000 units in year one, which is 21-22, I would have also sold 50,000 units in 22-23, correct? So that means my variable cost per unit is same, my quantity is the same. That means, can I say that my entire 4 lakh will be the same 4 lakh in year two as well? Can I say that? Okay, thank you, Abhishek. How about the others? Yes, correct. Fawaz has said 6. Yes, okay. How about the others? Only SP will change. Exactly, Abhishek. So my variable cost will remain the same. Now, if I have my variable cost here and I have PV ratio, let's say 37.5%. Don't you think we can calculate our VC ratio, our variable cost ratio? What do you think? Exactly, so here. Did everybody understand how we have calculated 62.5%? See, contribution is sales minus variable cost, correct? So what will be my variable cost? Sales minus contribution, correct? Please let me know if everybody has understood. Exactly. Thank you. So that will give me my variable cost, which is 62.5%. So what will be my sales? If you look here, my variable cost is equal to 4 lakhs, correct? Which is 62.5%. So my sales will be, thank you, everybody has got it. My sales will be 4 lakhs divided by 62.5%, which will be dollar lakhs, 4 lakhs, which will give me 4 lakhs divided by 62.5%. Everybody clear so far? Okay, great. Because this is 100%, right? Unitary method. In case people didn't understand, 62.5 into 4 lakh into 100 by 62.5 will give me 6,40,000. Then coming to my contribution, sales minus variable cost, it will be 2,40,000, and which will also be 37.5% of sales. So we have cracked the first part of the question, which is sales in 22-23. Now we need to go into break-even point in 22-23. Can somebody tell me how do we calculate break-even point? Anybody? Okay, fine. Let's go step by step. They have given margin of safety. Sale minus margin. Oh, great. Thank you so much. So you know what is margin of safety? What is the formula for margin of safety? Somebody tell me in the chat box. What is margin of safety? Profit by PV ratio. Great for us. What about the margin of safety in value? Expected sales minus break-even sales. Perfect. So sales minus break-even sales. Great. So if we know sales minus, okay, let me write it here. So we know that margin of sales is equal to sales minus break-even sales, correct? So we can say break-even sales is equal to sales minus margin of safety. Hello, everybody. Margin of safety is equal to sales minus break-even sales. So break-even sales will be equal to sales minus margin of safety, correct? Yes, perfect. So now if I go back to the question, I have margin of safety to be 21.875%. So what will be break-even sales then? Okay, let me make it a little more understandable here. Margin of safety is equal to sales minus break-even sales. Sales is equal to what? Margin of safety plus break-even sales. Clear here? Okay, this is understood. So that means what is, you try to understand the overall picture. Your total sales is what? Your break-even sales plus that additional margin of safety. Correct? Question has given what? Margin of safety is 21.875%. So the remaining is what? If 21.875% of your sales is margin of safety, what is the remaining sales? Remaining percent is what? Break even. Exactly. Exactly, Abhishek. I hope everybody understood the concept. So if this is my line, if this is my line of sales, and this is my margin of, let's say this is entire line is my sales. Okay. This is my total sales that I have made. A part of this is my break even. This is my break even sales. And whatever I'm making over and above my break even sales is my margin of safety. Okay. Now they have said that this is 21.875%. So the remaining will automatically become my break even sales. Everybody clear with this concept? Has everybody understood? Okay. So sales is equal to MOS, margin of safety, plus break-even sales. So sales, let's say, is 100% is my sales. Margin of safety is 21 point. What is my margin of safety? Can someone tell me the percentage? Thank you, Atira. 875% plus break-even sales. So can somebody tell me what is break-even sales percent? 78.125. Thank you so much. So 100 minus 21.875. 71.125% is my break-even sales. So how do I do that? We know what is our sales. We've calculated as 6,40,000 into 78.157%. So that gives me a break-even sales of 5 lakhs. Is everybody following with me? Thank you, Taslima. That's the right answer. Any questions? Anybody who didn't understand anything right now? I hope nobody's mugging up any formula here. It's pure concept. Okay? Nobody should try to memorize any formulas here. That 5 lakh once more. Okay, perfect. You understood sales is equal to margin of safety plus break-even sales, Khatija? Okay, perfect. So that means if sales is my 100%, because whatever I'm selling is 100%, right? Out of that, 21.875% is margin of safety. So what is the remaining percent? 78.125%. That will become my break-even sales. Correct, Khatija? Understood? So if 78.125% is my break-even sales, percent of what? Of the total sales, right? 78.125% of the total sales will become my break-even sales. So that will be 5 lakhs. Okay? Clear? Now let's move into the next part, which is the fixed cost. So fixed cost for 22-23 in value. So now how do you think we can calculate our fixed cost, guys? Can somebody tell me what is the formula we can use to calculate break-even sales into PV ratio? That's right. How did you get that formula, Naja? Can somebody tell me what is the primary formula we are using to calculate the fixed cost? Okay. Anishka has said fixed cost by PV ratio. What is fixed cost by PV ratio? Break-even point. Exactly. Not in units, in value. Break-even point in value is fixed. Exactly, Sana. Break-even point is fixed cost by PV ratio. Correct? Break-even point in value. What did we learn? We learned fixed cost by PV ratio. Correct? Remember, everybody? Correct? So now we have BEP in value, which is, Pratyusha, all okay? Are you able to recollect? Okay. So now BEP in value is fixed cost by PV ratio. So we have BEP in value 5 lakh. We have PV ratio 37.5%. So can we calculate fixed cost then? Fixed cost will be what? Can somebody tell me from here what is fixed cost? Not the value, the formula. Not the value, the formula, Taslim. How did you get 1,87,500? What did you multiply? Exactly. So break even sales into PV will give me fixed cost. So that is nothing but 5 lakhs into, what is my PV ratio? 37.5%. So that is 1,87,500. Everybody understood how we arrived at the fixed cost? Any doubts? Clear? I hope nobody has to remember any formula. Clear. Okay. Great. Perfect. Okay. So let's take a quick 5 minute break and we'll resume. Okay. The class will be till 10:30 p.m. And so quickly in 5 minutes, come back. Okay. So by 10:05, please come back. All right. Okay. Hello, everybody. Start coming back. Okay, thank you, Jansi. Everybody else? Okay, great. I see half the participants are not there. Have they left or will they be joining us? It's just a 5-minute break just to stretch yourself. That's all. I hope everybody's coming back. Give it a minute more. Okay. So let's go with illustration 8. Okay. This will be a good summary for all the points. We can do illustration 8. Now, can everybody open 14.27 page number in your PDFs? Let me know once you have ready. We'll begin with the question. Let me know in the group chat. Great. Okay. So illustration 8 goes like this. A Limited maintains a margin of safety of 37.5% with an overall contribution to sales ratio of 40%. Its fixed costs amount to 5 lakh rupees. Calculate the following: break-even sales, total variable costs, current profit, new margin of safety if the sales volume is increased by 7.5%. Okay, pretty simple question, but it's a good summary of everything in one question. So what is the first thing that are given? Margin of safety is given. Overall contribution to sales ratio. What is contributions to sales ratio basically? Can somebody tell me in the chat box? PV ratio. Thank you, Anushka. So contribution to sales ratio is your PV ratio and fixed cost is given to 5 lakhs. So what is the first thing you should be doing in the exam when you get a question like this? In the answer script, what is the first thing that you should be doing? How will you proceed with the question? The first thing. Can somebody tell me? Yes, sales is correct. But as I always tell, make the marginal cost table. Chart. Exactly, Aisha. Always make this table and keep it. So that whatever information is given, you can start putting it in this table and then start solving your questions. Okay. So the first thing that is given in the question is what? Margin of safety is given. And we have the PV ratio and we have the fixed cost. Let's put the fixed cost here. Our fixed cost is 5 lakhs. So whatever is given, let's put it. Now they have given the PV ratio to be 40%. So with the fixed cost and PV ratio, what can we get? Hello, hello. We have our fixed costs and we have a PV ratio of 40%. break even point. Correct. Correct. Perfect. So the first thing that is asked from us is break even sales. So let's go ahead and calculate our break even sales, which is what? It is our fixed cost divided by PV ratio, which is already given in the question. So that is 5 lakhs divided by, what is my PV ratio? 40%, right? So that should give me a break even sales of 12.5 lakhs. Everybody clear till here? Everybody clear till here? Perfect. Now, next is given to be, next question it's asking is total sale. What is our total sales? If we have our break even sales and we have our margin of safety percentage, can we calculate our total sales? Hello, in the chat. How do you think we can calculate our total sales? MOS plus BEP. Correct. Correct. Okay. Everybody has got an understanding. So your total sales is your margin of safety plus break-even sales. Correct. So margin of safety is given to be how much? 37.5%. How much is your break-even sales percentage? What percentage of the sales is break-even? Break-even sales? 62.5%. Perfect. So how do we calculate it? Always remember sales will be 100%. Okay. Margin of safety is given to be what? 37.5%. So 37.5%. Now break even sales, we don't know. That is our X. So break even sales will be equal to 100 minus 37.5. Got it? I hope everybody understood this. 62.5. So 100 minus 37.5 will give me 62.5. This is my break even sales percent. Okay. So if 62.5% is equal to 12.5 lakhs, how much will 100% be equal to? Which is basically my sales. 100 into 12.5 lakhs divided by 62.5. It give me 20 lakhs. This is my total sales. Got it, everybody? Any confusion, anything that somebody is not able to understand? All clear so far? Taslima? All clear? Okay. Thank you, Atira. Thank you. How about the others? Okay, perfect. So it's very simple. All you need to understand is one thread. Okay. Part of the thread is break-even sales. The remaining part will be margin of safety, right? So if margin of safety percentage is given, the remaining percent is break-even sales. And from that remaining percent, you can always calculate the whole. Simple mathematics, unitary method. Got it? So now moving down to the next one, which is, so now we've got the total sales. So immediately come and fill in your chart, 20 lakhs. As soon as you keep finding one figure, fill in your chart so that you can keep seeing where you are standing. Now, now one more thing we know is what? PV ratio, 40%, correct? So can we calculate our contribution and variable cost? Can we calculate our contribution and variable cost? Please let me know in the chat box. What is the next thing that you can calculate? Okay, Sana, how did you get that? Anushka says contribution. Perfect. Anushka, can you tell how will we calculate the contribution? Contribution. Perfect. Perfect. Please let me know how will you calculate sales into PV ratio. Perfect, Anushka. So what is our PV ratio in this question? 40%. And what is our variable cost? 60. Great. Which is nothing but sales minus your contribution. 60%. If contribution is 40%, sales will of course be 60%, right? Because say variable cost will be 60% because sales will always be 100%. Perfect. Yes, Janvi, that's correct. So slowly we can see our table is getting filled up. So what is the next thing that is being asked? Next thing that is asked is total variable cost. So now instead of putting it in the table format, we'll go here and write what is variable cost? Sales into 1 minus PV ratio. Correct? Or you can say sales minus contribution. Multiple ways of putting it. It's your wish. Just the value has to be correct. So we have already gotten our variable cost as 12 lakhs. Everybody clear? You see how easy it becomes once you make the chart. You don't have to think about formulas and mugging up things. Just build the chart, start putting your values, everything will flow. Okay? Here so far, everybody? Variable cost clear? Great. Perfect. Next question. Next question is current profit. If you go back to the chart, how will you calculate the current profit? Thank you, Jansi. That's correct. Contribution minus fixed cost, which is 3 lakhs. So we come down and you can put here contribution minus fixed cost, which is equal to my profit. Correct? No mugging up, no formulas, nothing. Just draw the table. We have finished our profit also. Last is new MOS if the sales volume is increased by 7.5%. So we need to know our new margin of safety if my sales volume is increased by 7.5%. What do you mean by sales volume is increased by 7.5%? If my sales volume is increased by 7.5%, do you think my sales value will also increase by 7.5%?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you. So of course, my sales volume will have an impact on my total sales value. So what is my new sales value? Will be sales plus 7.5%. How much do I get from that? 21,50,000. I hope nobody is looking at the answers in the material. So that is sales plus 7.5% of sales. Okay. That gives me the new sales of 21,50,000. So how will I calculate my margin of safety now? We know margin of safety percent is how much? Okay. Jancy says sales minus break-even sales. Correct. So how did we come to that? Like we always know, sales is equal to MOS plus break-even sales. So MOS will be equal to sales minus break-even sales. Now, what you should have a question: will my 7.5% not impact break-even sales? Will my break-even sales not go up by 7.5%? Can somebody answer that in the chat box? You're telling me margin of safety is sales minus break-even sales. Sales has gone up by 7.5%. Will break-even sales not go up by 7.5%? Pratyusha says yes. Okay. How about the others? Neetu says no. Okay. Why is it no? Can somebody give me an explanation? Why break-even sales will not go up by 7.5%? My sales is going up now by 7.5%. Okay. What is break-even sales? Exactly. Break-even sales is when there is no profit, no loss. That has no relevance to what is your existing sales. It has no relevance to your existing sales volume. Break-even point is when your current contribution is equal to your current fixed cost and when your profit is zero. It has no relevance to your existing sales. So if your existing sales increases, decreases, multiplies, divides, whatever, it will have no impact on break-even sales. Is that clear? Is that clear, everybody? Why break-even sales will not go up by 7.5%? Yes. So this clarity should be there. Why? When I'm asking you why break-even sales will not go up, you should know that break-even sales will have no relation to your current sales quantity. That is separate. Break-even sales is something you are calculating for your own requirement, right? So that will not be impacted with your sales, your current sales. So that's why break-even sales will remain as 12.5%. So what is MOS again? What is margin of safety? Sales minus break-even point. So what is the what is the amount here? 21.5 lakhs minus 12.5 lakhs. That will give me 9 lakhs. Is it clear, everybody? Okay. So I hope this has summarized entire concept for you with a deep understanding, and you didn't have to mug up any formulas. All right, ma'am, please share answer to the group. Yeah, sure. Sophia, once we finish the chapter, I will share it on the group. Is that okay? Is that okay, Sophia? Okay, perfect. So we are clear till here. Now let's do one small illustration and also. Yes, Sharifa? Yes. Question. Yes, tell me. Acha, you want me to share the question PDF? I have already shared the question PDF on this chat. Are you not able to see it? Can somebody share it on the WhatsApp group, your WhatsApp group, so that everybody has it? Sharifa, have you received the PDF? Then I'll do one thing. I'll share it right away. Have you received it now, Sharifa? Got it? Okay. So we'll just end today's session with this small concept of opportunity cost, and we'll solve a small question on it. And then tomorrow we'll proceed with the major questions. All right? It's getting quite late. Okay. So we are at illustration 10. So I hope everybody is aware of this concept of opportunity cost. So using this illustration only, I will explain you what is opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is the cost of the next best alternative. I hope everybody is aware of that, right? So now, a company can make, if you read this question, a company can make any one of the three products X, Y, and Z in a year. It can exercise its option only at the beginning of each year. Relevant information about the products for the next year is given below. X, Y, and Z. Selling price is 10 rupees, 12 rupees, 12 rupees. Variable cost is 6 rupees, 9 rupees, 7 rupees. Market demand 3000 units, 2000 units, 1000 units. Production capacity 2000 units, 3000 units, 9. And fixed cost is 30,000. Okay. Now, what is the issue with the company? The company can can sell only one out of the three products. Either it can sell X, either it can sell Y, or either it can sell Z. It cannot sell all the three. So what is the problem now? If it is deciding to sell X, it is going to lose the sales of Y and Z. If it is going to sell Y, then it is going to lose the sales of either X or Z. If it's going to sell Z, it will lose the sales of X or Y. Kartika, mostly tomorrow will be a morning session. I will confirm it to you in some time. It should be the morning. It will be a morning class around 8 a.m. Okay, great. So is everybody okay with an 8 a.m. morning class tomorrow? Because I'll be available only at that time. Okay, all right. So we have this situation where we have X, Y, and Z. Okay, we're still having one more question. We'll finish this and then only we'll wrap up. So we have X, Y, and Z. We have either we can produce X, we can produce Y, or we can produce Z. So what should we understand first? So first we should understand what is the individual profit for X, Y, and Z. How do we calculate that? So I have the individual contribution. So first thing we need is contribution per unit. What is contribution per unit? What is the contribution for X?
4.
4. Thank you. What is the contribution for Y?
3.
3. And what is the contribution for Z?
5.
5. Thank you so much. Now coming to units. What units will you take? Market demand or production capacity?
Production capacity.
Okay. Production capacity. How about the others?
2000.
No, I'm not asking you the value. I'm asking you what will you take? Market demand or production capacity? Market demand is what is the demand in the market for that product. Production capacity is how much you can produce.
Production capacity.
Okay, everybody says production capacity. Let me ask you a question. If the demand for the product is 5 units and you can produce 1000 units, will you produce 1000 units? Or will you produce 5 units? That is the market demand. 5 units. So it is not market demand or production capacity. It is whichever is lower. So if my market demand is only 5 units, I will not produce as per my production capacity. I will produce as per market demand. If my market demand is 1000 units, but I can produce only 5 units, then I will produce only 5 units. I cannot produce 1000 units because I don't have the capacity. So you need to remember, you will produce whichever is lower, either as per the market demand or as per your capacity, whatever is in your capacity, the lower one. Okay. So in the first case, what is lower? Production capacity is lower. Correct? So we will
Yes, ma'am.
produce 2000 units. In case of Y, we will produce, how many do you think we will be producing?
Market demand.
Market demand. Perfect. That will be 2000 units. In case of Z, how much will we be producing?
Production capacity.
Yes, that is the lower one, 900 units. Is everybody clear with why we took 900 units, 2000 units, and 2000 units for X, Y, and Z? Okay. So we can calculate our contribution, which is contribution per unit into units. And similarly for Y and Z. Okay. Now let's understand opportunity cost. What is opportunity cost? Opportunity cost is when you know that they can only produce one product at a time. If I produce X, what is my next best alternative that I'm losing on? What is that opportunity cost? Is it for Y or is it Z? It's Y. Perfect. Because Y has the next best profit, right? That is the next best alternative that I'm losing for. So that you need to remember, opportunity cost is the next best alternative that is lost. That is my opportunity cost. Because I'm producing X, I can't produce Y, I can't get the profit of 6,000. My opportunity cost here will become 6,000. If I produce Y, what is my opportunity cost? Perfect. Neetu says X because that is my next highest profit. Yes, that's correct. 8,000. How about Z? What will Anna says once more? Okay. And did you understand the 6,000 units? No.
Yeah,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. So, Sana, what you need to understand is firstly, what is the concept of opportunity cost? Opportunity cost means, to give you a small example, okay, so let's say you have 1 week of time to prepare for your CA exams. You either prepare for costing paper or you prepare for your law paper. If you prepare for costing paper, you can't prepare for law. If you prepare for law, you can't prepare for costing paper. So what is the opportunity cost? If you are preparing for your costing paper, you're losing the time to prepare for your law paper. Correct? That is your opportunity cost. From that time which you had, you could have utilized it for preparing something else. But you're preparing something else. Instead of law, you're preparing costing. Similarly, in this case, you can either produce X, you can either produce Y, or you can either produce Z. You cannot produce all three. When I'm producing X, I am losing out on the profit of Y and Z because both I'm not producing. But which is the better alternative in Y and Z? Is it Y or Z? Which has the higher profit? Y has the higher profit. So Y's profit, which is I am foregoing, will become my opportunity cost. That's why 6,000 of Y becomes my opportunity cost. Clear? This will become Y's profit. Now, is it clear? You want me to repeat it again? Okay. So now can somebody tell me when I'm producing Z, what is my opportunity cost? X. Perfect. Perfect. So that is my opportunity cost. So this is the concept of opportunity cost. I hope today's concepts and formulas are all clear. I'm ending the session right now because it's quite late. Tomorrow, hopefully 8 o'clock, inshallah, we should be able to connect again to complete the rest of the chapter. Again, probably like 8 to 10, I'll take a session and we should close a few more important questions. Let me know if there were any doubts, any clarifications that you need. If you want me to resolve it today, I'll resolve it now. Otherwise, yeah, we can close for today. I hope everything was clear. Clear. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we'll meet tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Yeah. So please do be available in the morning session. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.